Well, after like 2 or 3 years, I kinda lost track of the time, Gloomwood is here, in early access. This is maybe gonna be a shorter video unless I decide to throw in some wacky shenanigans. I'll give you the stuff you wanna know right up front though. It's a little under 3 hours to get through. This is supposedly a quarter to a third of the game, but don't take that as word of God. And it's one of the finest early access launches I've seen. It's more polished than some AAA launches that I've played, which isn't even counting the obvious one we all started remembering thanks to the anime. For reasons above, and how a number of you have been asking me for this for quite some time, I'm making my second exception to the 1.0 or no video rule for Gloomwood. Yeah, it's a tiny piece of a game, but it still runs longer than some of the stuff I'm doing for IndieWeen, so we'll call it fair. I hope you like sneaking around and quietly murdering guards, because that's going to be the bulk of your first 1/3 to 1/2 of the early access, depending on how quickly you move out of the first area, the fishery. You're dropped off into a big hole where you get sprung from fish prison, and then you gotta make your way out of the fishery and into the lighthouse. Get your gear first though. As a point of reference here, I'm playing on the full moon difficulty, which is currently the hardest available. It's not very hard. New Moon and Blood Moon difficulties have been removed from the EA, along with some other major things for this version of the game, and on top of that, the original demo is now entirely gone. Good thing I have plenty of footage of that for comparison's sake. Looking at this old footage, you'll notice that 1, god damn have they improved that cane sword model, and 2, the player character now has hands, and one of those hands has a ring which replaces those PNGs of a moon to tell you how much light you're in. Everything you do outside of the pause menu is in-world a la Dead Space. Your stealth meter is a ring. Your inventory is a physical suitcase, which if you don't have the physical space around you to open up, you cannot access it. The notes and maps you find are in an actual journal that is inside of your suitcase, and if you want to take something out of your inventory, you have to drag it to a spot outside of the case where you physically set it down. Ammo must be manually checked by opening the break action of your shotgun, for example, and so on. All of this makes sneaking that much more immersive, if you'll forgive a wordplay. The game very much wants you to sneak around from the outset, as you won't get the good boom booms until much later in the early access, and even then you're going to have a very hard time charging down enemies, as the doctor isn't exactly rocking a plate carrier. What we've got so far when it comes to game and level design is frankly amazing. The fishery in particular is a masterwork of vertical design with activatable shortcuts on par with the original Souls games. There's only one save point inside of the fishery proper, and that's all you're going to need, because it does so well to loop back to the save room from wherever you've progressed, so that you're no more than 30 seconds away from the save point at any given time. It's not exactly a small place either, as the first hour and 15 minutes of the 2 and 45 it took me to get through the early access were spent inside of the fishery. There's all sorts of environmental quirks to the early access too. Stealthing along the rooftop of the fishery would normally be a piece of cake in any other game, except for that the very lighthouse you're trying to escape to is lighting up the entire rooftop every 10 seconds or so you'd better be in some kind of cover when that light comes around. Fire propagates, and just because a torch-bearing guard is killed does not mean that that torch that they were carrying instantly goes out. Anything fleshy at the bottom of an industrial elevator is going to get crushed if it's at the bottom when the platform comes down, including both you and the bodies of enemies that you don't want to be found. There's Bubert. There's also some areas where it doesn't quite have the same amount of amazing level design as the fishery, such as the caves, but they're not bad. I think this is a case of Taffer King et al. Going so hard on that fishery that even what would normally be a perfectly fine and fun level will look kind of mundane by comparison. I also commend the devs for not just spawning that one guy on top of you so that people who know to check their corners won't get spooked unnecessarily. It picks up again in the hills leading up to the lighthouse, but the fishery is definitely the high point of this early access. And while it goes without saying, there is emergent gameplay all around you in Gloomwood. Stack boxes, specifically kill a certain huntsman holding a torch so the body falls on an exploding barrel, which kills all the other huntsmen. Throw bottles and other things like spent shell casings for fun and profit. You get the idea. You can do this with just about anything you can put your mind to, but not everything is going to be just handed to you though for being creative. For example, lights need a bit of force to break, and sometimes the thing you use to break the light might create so much noise that you're essentially causing yourself more problems than you're solving by taking out all the lights. If I had to sum it all up in a phrase, Gloomwood feels like an idolized memory of Thief 2. I mean that in how when you play something as a kid or years ago, it's the greatest thing ever, and you tell all your friends like you do, but when they check it out, it's just an old game that really has aged quite a bit. And then maybe when you go back and play it after a decade, it's not nearly how you remembered it. Well, if I had to guess, this is Taffer King's version of that was the first two Thief games. And he and everyone working on Gloomwood has shown the skill, the prowess, and the sheer determination to make their idolized memories into a reality, which is just a marvel of game design in general. That is so rare to see. Gloomwood feels like it was made with a deep love and reverence for the original Thief games and the other early Sims, but with the knowledge and skill to not only modernize them, but also fix a lot of the kinks that those games initially had. I'll admit that the early Thief games just don't click with me, and for me it's more of a sit in a corner for 10 minutes at a time until the guard pattern changes, bop a guy on the head, get your thing, get out. I have no problems like this with Gloomwood. Sure, you gotta lurk occasionally, but the game never grinds to a halt. Other inspirations are all over the place too. If you know what to look for, there's all sorts of little nods to the golden age of immersive sims all over the place in what we've got so far of Gloomwood. Before we get into my final thoughts on the Gloomwood early access release, let's do a cooking segment. But first, behold the face of pain. This is what dealing with JC Denton avatars will do to you. Also, I actually just decided to donate my hair right around Halloween in July, and I decided to get rid of the beard too because a little more motivation for losing the weight, you know? Also, check out this patron apron. This is only about a third of you, but I've still got plenty of space to keep on adding everyone whenever I get the time to head back into the makerspace again. It turns out there's only like so many I can do in like a full day of just like getting everybody on the apron. This cooking segment's gonna be a little different, as rather than cooking a dish, I found some delicacies, which I am now going to prepare and review for your amusement. The other day I was at the store and saw a bin full of discounted items. Apparently Cheetos tried to get into the box mac and cheese game. I'm going to prepare the 3 of these exactly as instructed, try them, and give you my thoughts and how much pain each one of them makes me feel. We've got some Kraft macaroni and cheese here as a baseline, we've got a palate cleanser, and we will be fully washing out the pot between each one because otherwise it'd get all messy and stuff. First up is our baseline Kraft macaroni and cheese. The main thing of note here is that during the preparation, it calls for twice as much butter as the others do, but despite this, it's only 20 calories per serving more than the others and has the lowest sodium out of all 4 of these boxes. It tastes like blue box mac and cheese. Now that I really think about it, it's more salty than cheesy, but the cheesiness is definitely like there. This is the kind of thing that you want when you're hungover or whatever and you just need calories with as little effort as possible. Now for the first of the Cheetos brand mac and cheese. I guess this is default flavor. First notable thing here that we're gonna see is that in this and the rest of the boxes, rather than the elbow macaroni that the Kraft and others use, Cheetos opts for these rotini type things, which while it says mac and cheese on the front, they kind of look more like egg noodles to me. Whatever they are, this is objectively the worst choice, as not only are these not as good as holding the cheesy sauce, which we will deal with later, but also they break apart and stick to the pot real easy. So noodles are done, and wow, that is orange. Since all these are pretty high in sodium and just calories in general, I'm limiting myself to 3 bites of each of these just to get a feel for how they taste. Also, if I ate all of these, it'd be like 4,000 calories. This one is cheesier than the blue box stuff, but it tastes more like wet Cheetos and not in a good way. It's also still fairly salty, but perhaps the overpowering flavoring of the cheese covers up the saltiness better than the Kraft stuff. Also, thanks to the lower quality noodles, the cheese sauce doesn't adhere very well, and if you really want to try the flavor, you gotta dig to the bottom of the bowl and get some of that sauce that's pulled at the bottom. This is edible, but this usual stuff is just objectively better in every way. Okay, now it's time for the jalapeno cheddar, which I say it like that because when I was a kid, we'd all say things like jalapeno and chipotle because we thought we were funny and ironic, and now I can't stop. Help me. This is cooked in the same way as the previous Cheeto brand mac and cheese, and I noticed that aside from the outside packaging, there's no way to tell what flavor each of these are based on the pouch. We've got bigger issues though. Once the noodles are done and I mix everything together, it's a weird color. I don't know what's up with that. Maybe I was expecting more of a green since like the last one was neon orange, but it's just this kind of, I don't know what to call this color. This one tastes bad The initial flavor is just blah, and while there is a little heat, it only comes at the end and it isn't even that hot. Also, as you can see here, it's much harder to get the mac and cheese on the spoon thanks to the shape of the noodles, making it quite an ordeal to manage to get both noodles and some of the sauce into a single spoonful. This is frankly yucky, but I will credit this flavor that I was able to get it down. Ooh boy, that just leaves flamin' hot flavor mac and cheese. Noodles are done, time to mix, and Jesus Christ, that is red. Also, it smells so strong that when I tried to get a shot with the PAINFEST camera, I had to pull back and cough out the fumes. So I get this into the bowl, and I really don't want to do this, but for all of you, here goes. You shits better follow the Patreon for this. Yeah, it was exactly what you thought it would be. The jalapeno one was pretty bad, but at least I could physically consume that. Also, look at this like bowl and this horrifying red droopiness over it. It's pain. Speaking of pain, how about I pull a Dugurlita like in the Avengers video and see how they all taste mixed together? Who knows? Maybe it'll be better. It was not. Oh god, it's even worse. My final verdict on all of these here is that they are awful, and if you see some of them on your store shelf, run. If you really want minimal effort mac and cheese, just get the craft stuff. Thank you all for coming to this ultimate pain cooking segment. If you've been entertained by how I've suffered here, please consider subscribing or supporting me on the Patreon, where we do good cooking segments, and I post the full recipes for all of you among many other cool benefits, such as early access to videos. And I've decided, since I just love making them so much, anyone who pledges yearly gets the iron-on patch, because I just love these things. I love making them, they're cool. I'm so happy when I see you guys with them, but let's get back to Gloomwood here. So now that you've watched me suffer uncontrollably, let's talk about my thoughts on Gloomwood. Right off the bat, this is the single most polished early access title I've seen. If there were any bugs, I did not encounter them. The new models look pretty final to me, or at least very good compared to what we've had previously, and they've come leaps and bounds compared to the demo, and especially compared to the old pre-demo screenshots. Stuff like weapon accuracy and the amount of noise and light you give off when you're sneaking feel really dialed in too. That's not to say that everything is perfect as it is. I'm one of the many who think the current hardest difficulty is too easy. To me, it seems like on top of just some default damage modifiers, that the huntsmen now have 270-degree fields of vision. However, beyond that though, Gloomwood so far is very nice. Just nice. Maybe they just gave us too much with that demo a couple years back. Maybe it's just another factor I'll get into in a sec. But Gloomwood's EA just feels like another larger demo. Yeah, it's great that we have this and it leaves us wanting more, which is entirely the point, but it just feels like we're doing the same dance all over again. There's no final date on when we're getting the rest of the game, and the most we've got is that EA Q&A page on the Steam store that says a year or two at least. So we're still essentially at soon TM, but now we've got a bigger, more polished demo to play while they hash out the rest of the game at the cost of $20. Don't get me wrong, all of what we've got in Gloomwood is very nice so far, and it's very pleasing to see how much progress has been made, but it feels like this was also meant to be a means of placation as much it was meant to be an early access release. I don't know if you've noticed, but Immersive Sims are having a big year right about now. We've had Rafael Colantonio's new studio Wolfeye release Weird West. We had the janky wonder that is Abramore. We just got the amazing Control-Alt-Ego, and that's just the release games. There's also Blood West that went into early access earlier this year and plays about twice as long as Gloomwood's early access, and they're also adding the second part of that soon as long as everything goes to plan. We've had 3 full releases so far just this year, plus another couple of solid early access launches, and we've still got 3 months left in 2022. If this Gloomwood EA had came out maybe a year ago or maybe sometime later, I'd be over the moon for it, but when it came out now, it had me going, well, this is pretty nice, but I guess I'll get to this later. I've got other games to play, which is exactly what I did. The reason this video is out so late relative to the launch of Gloomwood's early access is because I was too busy playing Control-Alt-Ego's full, amazing game to be bothered with 2.5 hours of early access, even if it's a very good early access, possibly one of the best early accesses ever done. Gloomwood's EA is presently a drop in an already pretty full bucket. This isn't exactly the end of the world for Gloomwood, as apparently it's New Blood's fastest selling title ever, and they did did indeed debut at #1 on the Steam charts, so good for them. Excellent for them. You love to see it. Just as far as my hype goes for being the immersive simp, there's a lot on my plate right now, so while an early access of something I've been waiting for literal years coming around is really cool, it's no longer the world-rocking thing that it might have been previously. Then there's how this will cost you $20 to play. Well, I'm all for not chanting $1 1 hour, as I believe that mindset devalues your time and doesn't take into account the quality of the entertainment you're getting. You can do a lot better for $20 right now. When we compare Gloomwood to Control-Alt-Ego's $20 or Blood West's $15 for early access, it's just hard to justify Gloomwood's $20. I'm aware that this is a get-in early price according to the Steam page, and that Gloomwood will be $30 on release, so essentially you're paying now to save money later, but that doesn't change the previous statement. So before we wrap up, I'll also say that even though it's only been a few weeks since the world got its hand on Gloomwood, New Blood is already making immediate improvements. For one, to mitigate how easy the game currently is, the Huntsmen are going to start having trauma plates to make them a little less stabbable. They've also altered the game to make something special happen when you put the IMSIM code into any of the safes, which, okay then. I'm hoping they put in some sort of note or context somewhere in the game saying something along the lines of, yo, so people kept getting into the safe because for some reason the default code still works on them. So I had one of the men in the workshop make a creative solution to this problem. Because as it is, this is just the IMSIM equivalent of dudes in a Marvel movie dancing around the phrase they're known for saying in the comics because it's subverting your expectations. Screw it. Tell me in the comments all the silly one-liners that the player character in Gloomwood would say if he was voiced. I'm talking stuff like, it's gloomin' time, or I'm gonna gloom. Increase the pain. I need maximum pain right now. No matter what though, Gloomwood Early Access is great. I wish I had more of it to play, and I feel kind of bad that it finally came around in a very competitive year for this niche of gaming, but it's great nonetheless. As I said in the previous video, if forced to choose between the two, I'd spend my money on Control-Alt-Ego, which is not only a fully finished game, but also is just goddamn brilliant. Play Control-Alt-Ego. I might even be as bold as to say that while it's definitely a buy, I think Gloomwood might be more of a buy later when there's more stuff in it title. There's been a lot of heat in 2022, not just for the IMSIM scene, but also for the indie spooky scene, and your $20 can get you really far if you're willing to wait on Gloomwood. But nonetheless, thank you all so much for watching. Please consider liking the video, and if you feel I've earned your subscription, I thank you, and would also like to suggest you check out my Twitter or join the Discord so that I have a way to reach you, because YouTube isn't really doing the one thing subscribing is supposed to do for you. I also run that Patreon to help keep the channel going and deliver you all sorts of cool insider stuff for your support, and now all yearly pledges get the Charlatan Wonder patch because I just love making these things. In the meantime, please stay safe, stay indoors, wash your hands frequently, and enjoy this cat video. Thank you for watching.
Saucy boy. Just what are you doing? It's not making muffin nibbling. Why are you trying to eat mommy? Whoa, that was rude. I need to intervene.
It's fine, it doesn't bother me.
We can't be letting the boy think he can just eat you.
No, he's just biting the blanket. My hair's not even
Why must you do such things to mommy? Mommy's great. Hey, okay, you see? You're just nibbling everything. May you just know that mommy's so great that she's the best nibbles. Oh yeah, that's it. Just can't stop looking at her. Because she's the best.